So we've got a Jedi Council here with Roger Stone and Jerry Corsi. And Jerry, you broke the story at Infowars.com earlier today. FBI has launched 3 investigations into Clinton's second special counsel to investigate Clinton crimes. Talk about this right now. So we've got 3 different investigations going on to the Clintons, and that is the Clinton Foundation money laundering, the Uranium One scandal, and the secret server. How are these investigations developing right now, Dr. Corsi?
Well, and again, I think they're extremely important, and President Trump appears to be proceeding very methodically, very determined fashion to really get solid investigations underway that will result in indictments. I mean, the first one in Little Rock, Arkansas, and New York, the FBI has begun a serious pay-to-play investigation into the Clintons on the Clinton Foundation, also looking at inurement, the use of the Clinton Foundation proceeds for personal gain. That could easily already have resulted in a grand jury because people are being called to testify, and I think you're going to find serious issues and indictments coming out of that. Second thing, we know through a letter that was authored by House Judiciary Chairman Bob Goodlatte, that Attorney General Sessions has assigned to several Department of Justice prosecutors to make recommendations on reopening this DOJ investigation into the Uranium One scandal, particularly into accusations that the Department of Justice held from CFIUS, the Treasury Committee that approved the sale of Uranium One to the Russian Atomic Energy Agency, withheld information that there was a bribery investigation from Russian agents in the United States ongoing when this was approved, when the CFIUS, Hillary Clinton, a member of CFIUS, approved the idea to sell Uranium One to Rosatom. And by that process, the Russians gained 20% of the U.S. uranium. That's another investigation going. The third investigation looks to be opened up in the Freedom of Information Act that Judicial Watch got. We now know that Huma Abedin had transferred something like 2,800 State Department work-related emails onto the laptop of her husband, Anthony Weiner, and some included classified passport information, which is password information, basically, that President Trump has charged were at risk of putting this information in the hands of foreign agents. And then finally, we've got the Department of Justice Inspector General Michael Horowitz, who's confirmed to Senator Grassley his office is investigating emails written between former FBI counterintelligence head Peter Strzok and the prosecutor Lisa Page, in which Strzok said we need an insurance policy. Strzok also is the one who recommended that Comey change the language in his draft about Hillary's email service from grossly negligent to extremely careless. Now, these are 4 investigations, and Charles Ortel, a very close friend and a very thorough researcher, as pointed out, also includes some investigations going on right now in Australia, in which the Australian government is really concerned that something like $80 million was transferred to the Clinton Foundation in a fraudulent fashion, including money that went to the Clinton HIV/AIDS initiative. This is, it's very serious. These are very serious accusations, and foreign investigations could also prompt further investigations in the United States. Now, the reason I wrote the article is most people aren't aware of how much serious investigation is going on, and we've already had one indictment come down last Friday in the Uranium One investigation, which we did not know was coming down, and that was developed by the local FBI and regional FBI, not the FBI in Washington. Now, these are major developments because what they indicate to me is that below the surface, there is already starting the Trump counter-revolution, which is going to result in major, I think, indictments coming down against a wide range of figures, including some formerly very high officials of the government, including Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. And from what we're learning even today about the Senate, the House Intelligence Committee, Nunes's committee, and the release of this 4-page memo, which looks like it puts the Fusion GPS dossier at the heart of getting the electronic surveillance approval from the FISA court.
Now, I have to interrupt you. I'm sorry. I have to interrupt you here, Dr. Corsi. Is that the same classified report that Ron DeSantis was saying need to be released to the public today that hadn't been released, or is this a different one?
This is the one that just came out today that DeSantis is talking about.
Okay,
also,
so now this is actually key here. Now,
yes.
This story came out this morning. FBI chief of staff to testify before House members on Clinton probe. Now, they talked to the Bureau's chief of staff, James Rybicki, and the topic of that conversation was, as Dr. Corsi was mentioning earlier, why former director James Comey did not recommend criminal charges against failed presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. So that meeting goes down. Then Ron DeSantis goes to Twitter and says, the classified report compiled by House Intelligence is deeply troubling and raises serious questions about the upper echelon of the Obama DOJ, Bruce Orr, and Comey's FBI as it relates to the so-called collusion investigation. Are we finally starting to see all the puzzle pieces come together here, Dr. Corsi?
I really think so. And because now just take a look. You've got the Department of Justice engaging the FBI at local levels of investigations. You've got the Inspector General of the Department of Justice, and you've got the various intelligence and justice committees in Congress all beginning to release indictments and very serious information of a criminal nature.
It's all coming down. It's a 180 degree. They thought they were going to get Trump on all this. It looks like it's going to be Hillary and James Comey. We're going to have more of that on the other side.
Welcome back to the War Room. You're with Dr. Jerry Corsi, the Washington Bureau Chief of InfoWars, and perhaps one of the very best, certainly the most dogged investigative reporters working today. He's just given you groundbreaking news about a new focus on the Clintons in this administration. But I'd now like to get to the topic that interests me the most, and that is, where is Julian Assange and what is in his future? Dr. Corsi was one of the first journalists in the country to suss out the importance of QAnon as a source and to begin to put together the puzzles of exactly what's going on. So, Dr. Corsi, take it away.
Well, Roger, on December 25th on Christmas, QAnon posted this very cryptic, I guess basically 4, 5, 6 lines that said essentially that Assange was going to be able to get out of, was going to be extradited from London on January 5th and 6th. And the details were given in this that were enough for me to take it seriously. I began looking at it and began realizing that the stage had been set. Because in fact, in your case, your district case, court case, President Trump sent attorneys from the Office of the President to argue that Assange had committed no crime because under U.S. New York Times v. Sullivan and New York Times v. U.S., it's the Pentagon Papers case, Assange had the right to publish the Democratic National Committee emails even if they were classified information and stolen. Now, we then found out after I started publishing this, and I think President Trump was following the whole case I think leading the case. I think this is another really quite brilliant move by Donald Trump, that we found out that Assange had a diplomatic passport given to him. He was naturalized by Ecuador and got a diplomatic passport. And that had occurred on December 12th. Yet for 1 month, Ecuador kept it secret. Now, to me, that would be the perfect time once Julian Assange had a passport. And Julian Assange was posting on his website this music from MIA, and the song was "We Can Go Across the Borders, We Have a Passport." He was telegraphing, Julian Assange was, on his Twitter account, that he was going to get out. So what a perfect time, this window between the 12th to plan it to on January 5th, have get him outside of London, take him on a disguise, put him on trains. You don't have to have nearly the passport clearance on trains you do on airports. Get over to Paris and take the très grande vitesse, the very fast French train, to Geneva. And I believe that Julian Assange is in Geneva and has been there since the 6th of January, extracted out of London. And I point out to everybody that we have had no comments from Donald Trump saying that we're going to prosecute Assange. Great Britain has said, well, they want him for this technical violation of violating essentially his bail. But, the Swedish government has dropped the rape charges against Assange. And if Trump really was going to arrest Assange, he could easily have been making statements today saying Assange had committed crimes and we're going to have an indictment of Assange and arrest him as soon as we could. Trump has not done that. All the signs indicate to me that QAnon was right, and that what we're going to see is a meeting between Julian Assange and President Trump on the 23rd of January, when Donald Trump announced he's going to Davos, Switzerland, which again gives an opportunity. Has never done that. Donald Trump has, I don't think, ever been to Davos, Switzerland. This is an opportunity if Assange is there to meet with him and perhaps bring him back to the United States, which would be a great coup. And I believe that Assange has the information which would be the final death blow for Hillary Clinton and this entire Russian collusion narrative. And I think the deep state would be dealt a severe blow, and President Obama for violating all the FISA court rules and using this fusion GPS to essentially conduct electronic surveillance on the campaign of a GOP candidate for president, which would be unprecedented in U.S. history.
That was a terrific summary. I think the key thing for people to understand here is that you can't be in court on behalf of Donald Trump arguing that Assange has not violated the law in the publication of classified information, even if it was purloined, yet have your CIA director and your attorney general arguing that Julian Assange violated the law by publishing this material and he should be prosecuted. From our point of view here at InfoWars, we believe Julian Assange is a journalist. And if you're going to arrest people for the publication of classified information, well, you better line up the New York Times and the Washington Post. Get some shackles for Bob Woodward. They do it every single day. The courts have held, as you pointed out, that these are perfectly legal functions of a free press. So it is time to end the prosecution of Assange. Hillary Clinton wanted to hit him with a drone. The Secretary of State, John Kerry, traveled to London to argue with the British government that they should rescind their recognition of Ecuador for one day so that thugs could storm the embassy and arrest this crusading journalist. God bless you, Julian Assange, wherever you are.
Well, and now we know why Hillary Clinton wanted to drone him. As I'm piping in here, guys, because I think we've got some breaking news here that I want to get Dr. Corsi's opinion on. As you bring up Fusion GPS, it's just been released. Glenn Simpson's House testimony has a discrepancy as far as his Senate testimony is concerned, where in his Senate testimony, he admitted to knowing Bill Browder when he was with the Wall Street Journal in 2009. Then in his House testimony, he said he never had heard of Browder or knew who he was until 2013. Now, all of a sudden, Glenn Simpson is on the high wire, and Glenn Simpson might have to explain himself. How about that?
Well, I think there's going to be a number of discrepancies in Simpson's testimony. Also, from what was released by Senator Feinstein, he initially didn't know anything. He said he didn't remember anything, didn't know anything. I think this 4-page memo that Ron DeSantis is talking about is going to be explosive. So I think we're about to see the release of massive amounts of information that are going to just simply bury the Russian collusion argument. And I want to go back to what Roger said on Julian Assange. I mean, this was in Roger Stone's case, this whole Russian collusion case that Donald Trump sent the attorneys from the White House to argue that Julian Assange had done nothing wrong. Now, that was an incredibly important signal that was heard around the world. I think it encouraged the Ecuadorian government, who I believe has been working in conjunction with our government, to find a way to get Assange into the United States. It's just like there's no law against Russian collusion, and there's no law. In fact, the First Amendment protects a journalist who is going to publish classified information that was given to them, even if that information was stolen. That's the Pentagon Papers case. These are very critical landmark decisions. And Julian Assange needs to be recognized as one of the most courageous journalists in the world. And Donald Trump already owes a great debt and has acknowledged it to Julian Assange for the release of the DNC emails and Podesta's emails during the campaign. And again, they were so damaging, not because they were stolen, but because of what Podesta and Hillary Clinton and the others wrote in those emails that they never wanted the American public to see. The Julian Assanges are true heroes, and we need to celebrate them. We need to bring them back to the United States, and I hope President Trump does it. You know, President Trump gives him a position, a watchguard position over some of the agencies of intelligence in the U.S. government. I'd love to see Julian Assange be given assignments to investigate the NSA, to investigate various of the other agencies. And remember, Admiral Rogers, who is leaving the NSA, is one of the real heroes who came over November 17th or 18th after the election in 2016 and told President-elect Trump that he was under court-ordered surveillance from the Obama administration. It was shocking to Donald Trump. The next day, Donald Trump moved the transition team to Bedminster out of the Trump Tower and began tweeting that President Obama was wiretapping him, which was correct.
Jerry, let me ask you one more question before we go here. Why was the FBI telling Trump that Russia was trying to blackmail him with information at the same time the FBI was saying that Trump colluded with Russia? How does that make sense? Why did that happen?
Well, again, you had contradictory stories coming out of the FBI because this thing has been convoluted and had many different trails to it. But the fundamental basis, and I think President Trump was on this case again, and is absolutely correct, that there has not been